I am a conspiracy theorist at heart, and I have to believe that the reason
BlackRock.
yeah, I mean, I have to
I knew it.
the reason I believe that this all happened is because
Are real estate agents leaving the real estate market in droves? Jeremy at the Night Group, your favorite Austin realtor. This is actually a phenomenon that we are starting to see. In fact, if we look at this chart from 2019, we see that a lot of real estate agents have already left the market. Now, what are the reasons for this, right? A lot of the news media that you're seeing is telling you that it is all because of the real estate commission lawsuit, which we're gonna sit down with Kevin Knight in here in a second and actually go through all of that. So stay tuned for that. But there's a lot of other reasons that real estate agents are just leaving the market in general. Number one, slowing down of sales. Yes, less sales on both buyer and seller side is resulting in a lot of agents being out of money. If you look at these headlines like this, they're saying that the agents are going out of business because they're running out of money. It's true, yeah, a lot of real estate agents are slowing down. Look, a lot of real estate agents got into the market in 2020, 2021, as we see a spike from this chart. They got in when the market was going crazy and it's a lot easier to sell a home. And now that it's harder to sell a home, it is much harder to sell a home. They are finding their way out of the industry. Now look, real estate agents, when they get into the business, they don't take on and think about some of these things. It is running a business. It is managing a P&L. It is managing team members. Look, a lot of people look at a 3% commission when you make off of a $500,000 home, you're looking at 15 grand. They don't understand that their 35% of that is going to taxes. You have another percent that goes into, because we're real estate agents and we're individuals and not necessarily work for a company, you actually have to pay health insurance, all the other things. It is very expensive. That $15,000 paycheck after fees, after broker fees, which is 30% sometimes, after paying taxes, after paying for your office fees for marketing, it is a ton. That $15,000 commission works its way down to like 4 grand pretty quickly. And so a lot of people don't understand that it is very tough to run a business. In fact, this graphic right here shows you that in 2023, half of the real estate agents that are in the Austin area sold one home. That's it, just sold one home. In fact, the agents that were selling the most homes at 14, right, selling up to 14 homes a year, was less than actually 400 agents in the entire 20,000 agent MLS. So this just shows you that even though there might be a lot of agents in the market, only a select few sell a lot of homes. And so this is something that people just don't understand. Now look, sales are down, attrition in real estate is tough. Burnout. Burnout is another reason that real estate agents just are leaving the market. Look, 2020 was rough. We were in the middle of a pandemic. The market was crazy. Buyers and sellers were running rampant, and it was a hard time actually to sell real estate. I know people think it was an easy time. It was a lot of work. Real estate agents do work 7 days a week a lot of the time, so your work never leaves you, and burnout is something that happens with real estate agents all the time. And then this NAR lawsuit stuff. Let's talk about that. So let's talk about sales, because a lot of the articles that you're reading are talking about the reason why agents are leaving the market is because of sales. And that's true. Here in the Austin market, we're down 13% from 2023. 2023 was down from 2022. So yes, I think this is an aspect of why agents are leaving the market. You have less sales. Now think about it. There's 440,000 sales that happen a year. There's typically two sides to that, right? And so one thing we're going to talk about with the commission lawsuits is dual agency, because Texas is a little bit different. You can't have dual agency in Texas, and we'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to bring on Kevin Knight, and we're going to talk about that with him. But with a reduction in sales and a potential reduction in commissions due to the lawsuit, which is something that is going to transpire, you do see a lot of agents getting out of the business for that. Now, agents that haven't ridden one of these waves are definitely going to run into this. I mean, let's look at the overall trends, right? You saw a lot of agents in the market in 2008. And if you follow the market down, when the market crashed, you saw a ton of agents out back down to 2010. The amount of agents dropped significantly. So if we follow just that trend from 2008 and the slowing in sales from 2008 to now, yes, absolutely, you're going to see a lot of agents leave the market. Before I bring Kevin in, let me talk about the basics of this lawsuit. In a second, I'm actually going to read a Reddit article that I thought was actually really well written about this. But what was happening is the MLS was requiring, to be on the MLS, it would require you to have a compensation for the buyer's agent in the MLS. So it could have been a penny. this was always negotiable. And now what this lawsuit is saying is that you can no longer couple commissions. So I, as an agent, cannot require my seller to pay a certain amount to the buyer's agent, right? So that was a coupling, right? You'd have the buyer agent or the listing agent was paying the buyer agent at closing. What has changed really is not a whole lot other than a lot less clarity, because that's the whole point of this, was to be more clarity. The clarity aspect is completely gone. So in the MLS, it won't state a commission. So an agent is going to have to reach out to the listing agent to ask if they are paying for a commission or not, which means that the buyer has to choose whether they want to really like pay for their agent's commission. This is going to cause a lot of problems, which Kevin and I will get into in a second. But now a seller can offer a commission to the buyer's agent, but the agent, the listing agent, cannot offer a commission to the buyer's agent. That's all that's really changed. And so there is some hesitancy with a lot of agents in the market that are really stressed out about this. Look, real estate's not easy, burnout, you're not making as much money, and now this lawsuit, and you are seeing a lot of agents leave for that reason. I do want to talk about the commission lawsuit, and I do want to bring on Kevin here in a second, because I do think it's really important to get not just my take, but somebody else's take. And look, you love Kevin because he's been on Real Migos, which, stay tuned, we have some Real Migo news later. Here's what this says. I see reports everywhere that hundreds of thousands or even 1 million agents will quit the industry soon due to things getting harder in the industry. The New York Times, for instance, said in March about 1 million real estate agents could leave the profession. My guess is several hundred thousand will quit in the next year. I actually agree, maybe not several hundred thousand, but you will probably see a good chunk. In fact, we've actually seen a decrease from 23 down to 24 already in this graph. I think the buyer agency plays a role for many agent income. I think many buyer agents are absolutely great at what they do and provide great value to their clients. I think many work extra hard to get their buyer offers to go through and to the closing table. Agreed. I think that's one of the hardest things is when I have on a listing, when a buyer comes to me directly, and this is what we may see more in the market, buyers think they just got to go straight to the listing agent, they're going to save money, which you're not. It is a much harder transaction for everyone because that person's not educated. Buyers are going to have to get a lot more educated before they even go see a home and actually interview more agents, because what we're going to talk about with Kevin. That being said, I think the real estate landscape will indeed get harder. Someone that is a good buyer's agent and knows everything about housing in and out might not be so great at getting buyers to sign buyer agency contracts where commissions will go to them if they sell, if the seller doesn't pay. I also don't think many buyer agents will be good at negotiating commissions with the listing agent and seller. This is a fantastic point that Kevin and I will cover, because for real estate agents, it is not easy to be in this business. And then you got to go learn how to get negotiations. Just because you get a real estate license doesn't mean you can sell tons of homes. You actually have to go through and get negotiations certified, buyer, seller certified, all of these luxury certified. All of these designations I have on my team. I think there will be less agents and more at the top making more money. So yeah, I agree. There's gonna be a lot of agents getting out of the market completely. What do you think so far about this? I think it's really a time to dig in the trenches and work around the clock to make sure you can survive coming industry changes. Have the prospecting at 100% full stream, follow systems in place, scripts, buyers, agency agreements, and keep learning as much as you can. Overall, they say that they think it's going to be a lot harder because only 90% don't sell. It's only 10%. Kevin, we've been looking at this real estate commission lawsuit for a while. Overall, I have concerns because this was supposed to be clarity. I don't see clarity.
Yeah, there's no clarity here. And I figured that was probably going to happen anyway when something like this happens. I feel like from the time that the lawsuit came through and the decision was made, the solutions that they came up with were not really well thought out.
Right.
And the deadline to implement them was like, hey, here's some really half thought out solutions and we're going to get them done like in a couple months.
Yeah, you could tell that the people who put this lawsuit together, obviously the DOJ has been behind this from the very beginning. Don't let them fool you. They've been behind it, right? I don't see decoupling as the issue, right? I think that, if you didn't want to provide to be on the MLS for a buyer agent, you didn't have to. And obviously that's always been negotiable. But what they're trying to do is give clarity where a buyer can negotiate what they pay their agent. And the reality is what you pay does depend on whether you're getting good service or bad service. I mean,
Yeah.
look, there's so many agents out there that just want to sell homes and all they care about is a paycheck. Totally get that. And then there's a lot of agents that do care about their clients.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the clarity aspect was a problem, because now when I go to my buyer, I have to say, okay, you reach out to us, right? You come in, you see this channel, you see Kevin on the channel, you see me on the channel, and you go, look, these guys know what they're talking about. Let me reach out to them. Now we have to spend way more time up front doing what?
Explaining that and working with people.
Right. So now we have to spend more time explaining to you the process, which we've always done on our
Yeah.
teams, right? We've always done a good job when you come in. Here's the process. Here's what you're going to go through. By the way, you may have to pay my commission, which has
Right.
always been the case.
Right.
Like on our agreements now, when we send out our buyer broker agreement, which that's the one thing that they've changed, that if you, even to show a home, this is, I think, what's ridiculous. Even to show a home, you have to have an agency agreement with that person, whether it's a day, 7 days, or 7 months, 10 months. But you have to state up front that you may have to pay my commission. What is the commission? We've always had that in our agreements.
Yeah, it's always been that way. And that's been the number one conversation that people have had. And I almost always preempt that when I send a buyer broker agreement and they say, in that section, it says, you know, this is the fee for doing my service. But in cases like this, most of the time it's offered as part of the transaction. If it's not being paid on the, you know, on my behalf from the seller, I can ask you to pay my commission. So we've been clear about that the whole time.
Right.
And that's why I don't know that this solves any problems, because that the clarity was in the agreement, it was clear. And in MLS, the number was clear.
Right.
Like we knew
Right.
they're offering this commission. So I don't need to go to you and
Right.
ask you for this. That's clarity. So, you know, to think the solution would be like veiling that, like making it less obvious. And now we have to call every single listing and say, are you paying a buyer's agent's commission or not? And the things that also can confuse is there are different paths that now sellers, like listing agents, will be taking with the seller. So are they going to still come in? Because the whole idea behind this lawsuit is that a seller thought they were paying too much commission by having to pay a buyer's agent. So what they're expecting was, okay, now a listing agent's going to come through and the listing agent commission to sell my house is going to be 3%. No, it is not. The listing agent is going to still come to you and say, I still charge 6% to sell this house.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to pay any money to a buyer's agent anymore.
You know, what's interesting is we've always had discount brokers, right? There's one that's famous that's on the internet consistently. And the reason why so many agents go out of business too is they discount their commission, and it is so hard to make money in this industry. You discount your commission enough, you put yourself out of business. And so that's why 3% has been for each side has been the veiling win. But I mean, we look at luxury homes all the time, and they're not always 3% each side, right?
No.
Even when you're negotiating. I think this is one thing for a seller. When I go to a listing agreement, I say, look, here's my fee. We can offer to offer the buyer agent whatever we want. In the MLS, we've always been able to do that. So here's my fee. For the 3%, I am doing this, and this. Are you comfortable with that? Yes. And we're going to offer 3% to a buyer's agent. Here's why we need to offer this, because potentially there can be some quote unquote steering, whether it's from the agent or from the buyer. If the buyer is looking at this house and going, man, they are priced really high, and I got to pay my agent an additional, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. These are funds that I don't have.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. So I think what you're going to see is buyers are going to be at a disadvantage, and sellers are going to immediately think, I don't have to pay a commission. Well, there's that steering part of it. Now, this is what's part of the lawsuit, there's some concern is. So let's say you have a listing at $500,000 and I have a listing at $500,000. These houses are identical. And camera guy Bryce right here represents a buyer. And Bryce says to them, hey, look, Kevin has his listed, but they are not offering a buyer agent commission, which means you're going to have to pay $15,000 or whatever we negotiate out of pocket to me to close. But Jeremy has the same exact house that they're offering the 3% commission or whatever. So which one do you want to go to? And you're probably going to say, well, I don't have to pay the one on Jeremy's. They're the same exact house. So I'm going to go negotiate because these people are being reasonable. That is where steering could be a problem. And this is what we're concerned about in the industry is that if you're not offering anything now, but again, here's the cool thing about this. And I was talking to Jeff McElroy yesterday. Jeff, we have new documents coming out. Jeff wrote an offer to somebody that wasn't offering 3%. Okay. Jeff goes, look, here's our offer. Go ahead and make your client a net sheet showing them what their net proceeds are. And I'm putting my commission in that the seller is paying for it. We can negotiate this. So there's going to be some negotiations that happen on this. But is that necessarily the best thing for a buyer and best thing for a seller? I think it's always been because when you bring me an offer, I go to my client and go, okay, so Kevin's bringing us an offer. They're offering, here's what the commission is going to be. Here's what they're offering. They're asking for $10,000 in closing costs right now, right? They're asking for this. You as a seller are going to have to pay maybe the title policy, but the buyer's paying for the buyer title policy. The buyer's paying for their this and this and this and this. Here's what your net proceeds are.
Right. Right.
Like none of that's necessarily changed. So I think for the knee-jerk reaction for sellers to think, I don't have to pay a commission anymore. Well, is it in your best interest to pay a commission? It might be. It might not be.
Well, and I think there's a more complicated set of factors here. I use the analogy a lot when you're thinking about things. Most of the time we think about things like algebraically, very linear. 1 + 1 = 2. And if we change this, then therefore this other thing will change. If the sellers are thinking, if I don't have to pay a buyer's broker anymore, then I can, sell my house for what it's worth, and then I get to keep more of the money.
Right.
But really the buyer is thinking, okay, let's say that I don't come with a buyer's agent to your house and your house is 500,000 and your neighbor's house is 500,000, but you're not offering a commission, but I'm not being represented now. I want a discount. I want to pay you not even 15 grand less.
Yeah.
I want 25 grand less because I'm having to do all this work myself. There are other factors at play here that the lawsuit doesn't factor in that are going to be situations that we encounter. Right. And I think what's going to happen is that in a very short period of time, these are going to get exposed almost instantaneously. Yeah. And I could see that knee jerk of, okay, now we're going to revert back to all these old changes because, this is the way that things have been for eternity. And adding more convolution to this process without actually solving the process doesn't help anybody in this case.
I see a lot more lawsuits happening because of, and look, I've had so many times where buyers come directly to me. I don't want to pay a buyer agent fee. I want you to credit me 3%.
Yeah.
And my agreement with my seller has always been whatever the agreement is. So it's not like I'm going to give you 3%. You're not an agent. You can't actually take a commission, right? So maybe we reduce the price a little bit. Maybe we do whatever, but you're already trying to negotiate the price as it is.
Yeah.
So the problem I find is that when I get an offer from somebody that's not represented and they don't know what they're doing, there is a lot of issues. It is a lot harder to get that transaction to close. So I'm telling my client, my seller client, hey, they don't represent themselves. It is going to cost me way more time, money, and energy to get this to the closing because they don't know what they're doing. That is going to cause a lot of lawsuits post-close. It might cause a lot of lawsuits because buyers don't know that if they don't make this threshold, there can be a lawsuit against them. They can't just back out. Maybe they're going to lose earnest money. Right. So you're going to see buyers lose earnest money because guess what? You were negotiating when you come as a buyer and you don't have an agent, you don't have anybody actually negotiating for you. Okay. Remember what I said earlier, designations. We have negotiation expert designations. We go through and get designated in these things so we can negotiate for you. So imagine, I'm going to tell that seller, we are going to annihilate this buyer, negotiate things way better for you. So you are not actually better prepared without an agent. You really aren't. Now, you might think maybe you bought a ton of homes and you don't think you need an agent. Fine, I've had people that have done that. But at the end of the day, there are going to be more lawsuits at the end of it because what's going to happen is that buyer's going to close, something's going to break, and they are going to be like, well, these people screwed me. They held something, even though you gave them all the disclosures, they're going to come back and try to sue. Buyers will get screwed, and maybe some sellers will get screwed by this too.
Yeah. I am a conspiracy theorist at heart, and I have to believe that the reason
BlackRock.
yeah, I mean, I have to
I knew it.
the reason I believe that this all happened is because there's no if a third of the single family homes in the country are
Yeah.
owned by conglomerates for rentals, they're looking at this again. It's a late stage capitalism thing. It is by nature uh, uh, institutional funding. They take a business, they see an opportunity, they take a business, and they extract as much value of it as possible at the expense of their lifestyle.
Right.
They want to suck as much out of that business as they can until they die.
Yeah.
The single family housing market
Yeah.
is a massive business. They identified this years ago and said, we're going to just institutionally fund that as a sector, a business in itself, and suck as much value out of it as possible. Who's the most expensive cost to that industry? The buyer's agent,
Yep.
the real estate agent. We're paying them way too much money.
Yeah.
Let's get them out of this.
And by the way, they're helping people negotiate and do things
against
so
us.
let's remove that obstacle. I mean, why do you think a lot of home builders advertise that you don't need an agent? And there are specific home builders, and you walk in and say, you don't need an agent. Or if you walk in without an agent, they will actually go, hey, you don't have an agent with you. We can't put an agent on the contract. Why not? Because the buyer, that builder's rep represents the builder, not you. Like they'll massage you and tell you how much how awesome you are.
Look at what they do. I just experienced this over the weekend. I helped a client look at some houses just for lease. The houses that were for lease, that were owned by BlackRock and those corporations, they make it impossible as an agent to show that house. There's no way to register those as an agent. They won't give you the code to access the house unless you access it and register as a person that's going to lease the house and upload your driver's license and access the house directly, because they don't want to pay an agent for that as well. Trust me, they want real estate agents out of this. They want to deal directly with the consumer, and anything they can do legally or whatever, they're going to do that.
So there you go. Do you think that this lawsuit's a good lawsuit? Do you think that this was done with the good intentions? I know a lot of you are going to tell me how much you hate real estate agents in the comments, and that's totally fine. You're more than welcome to do that. For those of you that appreciate agents, what do you think? By the way, if you are looking for an agent in the Austin area, we've got some great agents here. Look, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, share this with a friend, and give me your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you in the next video.